Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you are joining us today for Up and to the Right. And every single week, many of you show up. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you. Take just a moment to share this. Love it. Give us some comments. Give us some feedback. And hey, watch this episode and just let us know what you think and what you learned. Any suggestions that we can benefit from, we will be happy to take. Okay. Also know this is that we got a visual and an audio. You can go to Apple, you can go to various different platforms and be able to find this podcast that works best for you. And today we have a very special guest and a friend of mine all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, pastor of One Church, Greg Ford.
Hey, Rodney, thank you so much, man. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
And Greg, I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to sit down. You're in Oklahoma City.
It feels good. It feels hot, actually. It's much hotter than Ohio, but good to be here.
It may be so, but actually we are having a great summer.
Is it?
It has been an amazing summer because it can really get hot in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And we've actually been breathing in some good temperatures the last few weeks and some good rain. So things are a little greener than normal.
Yeah, I noticed that actually. I was expecting it to be like, the smell of burnt grass, but it was pretty good out there.
A lot of summers, that is the case.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that, this past weekend, you were with us in Oklahoma City, and what an amazing time. And we were thrilled to have you. Thank you for pouring into our people. And we believe that the continuing services through Revival are going to impact people. But thank you for starting us off and being the opening speaker.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to do it. Remember when you called me and reached out, and you're like, hey, we're doing a revival. And I thought, I can't think of a better time for a revival than right now. And of course, if you've been around church, that word is a word that's been around for a long time that people, used it in different contexts. But I think in terms of a time of reviving and resetting and refreshing and, okay, what's next, yeah. God, right? We're coming out of this COVID thing and we're going into a new season. Instead of going, hey, we got to try to rebuild where we used to be. Lord's bringing something back, creating something new. So I'm just so glad that you were obedient to that idea and honored to be a part of it.
Well, we're excited. We're kind of, revival, renewing our passion for Jesus. And so that's what we hope is happening. And thank you for being a crucial part of kind of igniting that passion and fire for Jesus.
You got it.
Hey, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about maybe, pastoring, how long you pastored, your family, whatever you think is important for us to know.
Yeah. So I'm a church planter. Okay. So before that, I was a youth pastor. My wife and I started to feel like a transitioning was going to happen, like something new was going to happen, and we weren't sure what. So we started kind of praying through, these different options, and that praying was kind of a cool experience. At the time, our flesh didn't enjoy it, but we were trying to kind of get to that place of certainty so we could take a step of faith together. So we started kind of going to different communities and just praying and talking, and came to one particular community we felt was the place we were supposed to be. So we packed everything up, moved 2 hours away to a new city, and I took a job at a front desk at a fitness club. So I needed to meet people. I needed to, feed my family. At the time, it was just my wife and I and our daughter, and I took a job and I worked there, and I was the front desk guy. So people would come in, Rodney Fouts walks in, right, and I go, hey, go ahead and scan your card. Rodney Fouts, your picture comes up. I'd be like, Rodney, have a good day. You'd go in, I'd X you out of the system and do drills. Type in Rodney Fouts, X out Rodney Fouts, because I want to memorize your name. I think one of the ways we honor people is by learning their name. If I keep going, oh, what's his name? What's her name? And it can be hard sometimes. Somebody's name slips your mind, but like to know someone's name is to show them honor. So I work to learn names, and you'd come in the next time, hey, Rodney, man, put your tag away, man. I got you. Have a good workout. And so we began to build relationships. That's how we started the church. I did that for a year. My wife worked 2 jobs. I worked 3 jobs. And so we had it set up, tear down, and did that then for 10 years. So God's blessed us. We have two locations, physical locations now, and been weathered many storms and a lot of cool things, a lot of open doors. But I'll show you my family real quick. So I think we have a picture here. So that's me on the left, my wife Shaylin here in the yellow, and then in the middle is our daughter Ella. So she's 12 years old. She's a little genius, man. She wants to go to Wharton Business School. Okay, so she's 12 years old. She did her research. She thinks because she wants to be an entrepreneur. She used to want to be president. Now she wants to be the entrepreneur.
Sure.
I think she saw the last election. I was like, no thanks.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. She likes the Shark Tank.
Better move.
So she no joke emails Wharton Business School admissions office. She's like, I'm Ella Ford. I'm 12 years old. In 6 years, I'm going to be applying. What do I need to do now to get ready? And she has a running conversation going with them.
That's
so that's
great.
her.
That's great.
Okay. And then both of my sons are actually on the autism spectrum. So my son on the left, Hudson, you see there, who is really mad he has to take a picture, and even madder that he has to wear clothes.
Yes.
Okay. And then Miles is my son on the right. Both of them are on the spectrum, but super awesome guys. Love to swim and love DVDs.
Good.
So that's our family.
Congratulations. You got a beautiful family.
Thank you.
And you are blessed.
Thanks, man.
Blessed. So, wow. Now, we got the feel of you, church planning, just in a nutshell, real quick, and then your family. Tell us a little bit about you in regards to your fame. Everybody has their moment in time where they become famous. Well, yours happened. 30 million plus views. This was crazy because the first time that I heard about this, my staff comes to me and said, "You look at this pastor.
This lunatic.
Look what he does." They call him the WWE baptizing pastor. And so they bring this to me, and I look at it, and I said, "I know him. He's my friend, Greg Ford." And they're like, "No way. You can't know this guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, he's a friend of mine." And I didn't know that it had went viral because I don't my pulse is not always on what's happening, the latest thing on what's coming on YouTube or whatever. But I said, "No, that's Greg Ford. That's definitely him." And so we talked about it, not realizing that actually you would be here with me, sitting here doing an Up to the Right podcast.
Yeah. All right. So here's the
what
story.
happened.
Yeah. So when, church plant, right? So when we start baptizing people. And we first started baptizing people. It's just a handful of people, right? It's 1 or 2 people get baptized. And so every time we would do it, we would have a conversation in the tank, right? So you're getting baptized. Rodney, man, tell us, where were you when Jesus found you? And tell us your testimony. So every baptism had this really powerful sort of experience. And so what ended up happening is over time, I had a friend one time I'm baptizing, and powerful story. I actually wrote like a spoken word for him. I gave it specifically to him. And then when I baptized him, because he and I were so tight, I like kind of gave him a little extra oomph, and there was a big splash. And it was like Sister Act 2, man. The crowd went to their feet.
No, little extra.
No, I'm getting to that. Okay, I'm getting to that. So a little extra comes up. Crowd goes to their feet. It's like Sister Act 2. We're having a moment. And after that, every dude that got baptized was like, "Man, you better slam me in the tank, man. I've been through some stuff, man. I was an alcoholic, man. God brought me through this, man. Da, da, da."
That's great.
So they started asking for it. So I started thinking, oh, this is kind of cool because something's happening on the inside. And, we want to reflect. If they're busting at the seams inside, why not bust in the seams on the outside? But I also didn't want to be slamming people who were like gentle, right? Yeah. They didn't want that. So what we did is people started coming in the tank, and now we're having a bunch of people get baptized. We started asking on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you want to go down? Okay. So if somebody's like, 2, because they're not like they don't want that, then we would very gently lower them down. But some guys would be like, I want like a 20, right? Okay. So we do that in a service, and a guy sitting on the front row, and if you see the video, it's like grainy. It looks like security footage, you know what I'm saying? But he makes this video. It's his friends getting baptized. He puts a song behind it, posts it, and this comedian is like huge comedian, Kev on stage. He's like millions online. He sees it, and he captions it. He says, "When your pastor wanted to be in the WWE, but was called into ministry."
That's good.
That's funny.
That's good.
That's flat out funny.
Yeah.
So he posts it, and I honestly didn't know who he was at the time. I'm thinking, who's Kevin Stage? I'm thinking somebody in our church. I thought he was a guy in our church. Well, all of a sudden I look up, man, 100 shares, 500 shares, 2,000 shares. It just blew up. So I literally saw it go viral. It was kind of wild because it was like everything from like, I love the passion. That's awesome. To like, who are these people? They should be stopped. This pastor's a heretic.
Yes.
Yeah. So people like really upset. And at first I felt a little defensive, but when I stood back, I was like, man, I get how if I had no context, if I didn't know me or our church or what was going on, you'd think, are we making a mockery of it? So we actually shot a video to respond to just go, hey, these are good questions people are asking. And I kind of talked through some things about the difference between having fun and making fun. And,
well, it was more than just even having fun. It was the passion of the moment.
Absolutely.
This was about the incredible passion of this moment and just doing that with intensity.
Yeah. I got a crash course though in, online criticism, and at the end of the day, you got to kind of step back and give grace. And you go, no, I understand. If I walked in those shoes, imagine you were raised in a very liturgical environment or something like that, you would look and go, what in the world is going on? Yeah. So honestly, I was thankful for the opportunity to be able to actually teach a little bit about baptism and kind of the response video. And it turned out to be a pretty positive thing.
Good. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, speaking of conflict, because you got to go deal with some conflict there, we're going to talk to you today. And the reason why I want to sit down with you is to talk about conflict. And I know those that are listening, and maybe those that are listening know somebody that's really struggling with issues of conflict, but all of us deal with it. Mm-hmm. All of us deal with it. Yeah. Whether it's, if you're married, hello, that's what it's all about. You're going to be dealing with conflict between parents and kids and parents, business, everywhere else. So we're going to talk about conflict. So today, we're going to go to Let's Talk It Over. And it's a great segment. It's part of this episode. And so let's dive into Let's Talk It Over. Well, Greg, I'm so glad that you're here with me, and we're going to talk about this topic on conflict. And so why do you think it is such an important topic?
Yeah. I think when you hear the word conflict, immediately it has like a negative connotation, at least in our minds. Like if I was to say to you, hey, I need to have a conflict with my wife. Or if I was to say, hey, my friend Terrell and I had a conflict, immediately what would jump in your mind is they had a fight. And I think sometimes conflicts are fights, right? But I think in general, getting good at conflict is like the secret sauce in how you solve problems, how you bond, how you unearth things that could, ultimately, rob you or harm the people around you, even having conflict with yourself, right? So every movie you've ever watched had a great conflict. You wouldn't watch a movie with no conflict,
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, even like, reality shows are manufactured conflict, right? Yeah. The Bachelorette, right? They create a cast of people that they know they're going to mix it up a little bit, and even they show you the conflict before you go to before they go to the commercial, because they want you to come back because they know it's interesting. So when we watch it sort of outwardly, we get that it's important, but it feels like a threat in our lives because, man, if my wife and I talk about this, or my husband and I, if I say what I really think, what if it costs me the relationship? Or maybe say like us, right? Like you and I we've been friends for a while, but we don't spend tons of time together. And if there was something I did that rubbed you the wrong way, or something I saw in your life, like, man, is Rodney never going to talk to me again? Or if we were business partners, is this going to mess up our business? So we tend to avoid it, whereas it's the secret sauce, man. It's the thing that if we can figure out how to do it well, to get good at conflict, we problem solve, we get closer. I mean, how many times you had a conflict with somebody that you were dreading? You get to the end of it and you're like, wow, we're better. Why didn't we do this earlier, And so I just think it's critically important. I think if you love somebody, you need to be willing to have conflict with them.
So that's good. That's a good start there. Now, I know, how do we prepare for conflict? Because I think preparing for it is so important. I know for me, sometimes we can prepare wrong. Sometimes I'm thinking in my head, this is what I want to say. It's almost like a vengeful, I'm going to get back at them. And so I'm preparing the wrong way. And I have to stop and realize, no, what's my ultimate goal in this? It should be to love is the way Christ loves, to heal a relationship, to forgive that relationship, to create solutions for that scenario, whatever. Talk to us a little bit about preparing for conflict and what that looks like.
That's a great question, because if you don't prepare for a conflict and you just walk in, it's like a barroom brawl, right? You're just grabbing whatever you can get your hands on or whatever you can get your mouth on and slugging, and it can sometimes escalate. And I think that's why some people, they either don't trust the other person, they don't trust themselves when they get in there, and we start mixing it up and everything's happening quickly. Is this going to go bad? So I love the question about preparation. Couple things. So one is, I think, preparing yourself, even framing mentally yourself. How am I entering into this? So I'm going to juxtapose two different mindsets. One is the lawyer mindset who's trying to win the case, right? So you and I have a difference of opinion. You and I have to work through something. If I show up like a lawyer and I prepare my case and I've got it open and shut and I rest my case and I win because I've got this point, this point, this point, more than likely, even if I'm right, we just polarized. I win, you lost, zero-sum game, and you win the battle, lose the war. You win the battle, lose the brother. You win the battle, lose the sister. You win the battle, lose the marriage.
Yes.
And frankly, in a lot of those cases, it really doesn't matter how right you are. I mean, how many times have you been so right, and you're fixated on it and you're locked in on it, but you end up losing much bigger. So I think here's a different mentality. Instead of winning the case, what if it's solving the case, which is the detective mentality? The idea that we're searching for clues. Something's not right. Some of it's on me, even if it's 1%, even if it's 2%. There's something in me that caused me to be more agitated than I should have been or could have been. Or there's something going on in my mind in this season that, is making me feel a certain way or made me react to you a certain way. Or I could have done, even if it's like I didn't do something wrong, I could have done this better. I'm unearthing something in myself and then unearthing something between us or going on around us. And when you think about when you solve the case, it's where we all end up in a better position versus where there's winners and losers. So I think knowing yourself, preparing, and then I would say this, some people, based on their temperament, how they process, internal and external processors, quick thinkers. Some people, they get in, they got that quick tongue, lawyer mind, and they're already getting a rebuttal and cross-examination and bang, 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 and they're fast. Okay. Not everybody's like that. Some people I need to listen to what you said. I need to process it for like a day or two. Some people in the moment, they get overwhelmed at the conflict. Maybe they grew up in a family where conflict was either fight, bare knuckle brawl, or flight, total avoid. So they don't even know how to do it. So anytime it starts to happen, they're pit staining and they're nervous. Okay. Well, maybe for that person to prepare would be to sit down and collect your thoughts, actually write a few notes, or to even say, hey, this next part, I want to make sure I get it so right because I can't unsay something. I'm going to read it. So to prepare, knowing yourself, having the right mindset. If I'm just coming in to dominate this debate, you win. Even if you win, you lose.
How many times have I won and I walked away a loser?
School of hard knocks, dude.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. So, for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's that wrestling inside of me. How do you handle conflict that when it's you're battling inside of you? Because that's key. You've got to deal with the conflict in you before you can deal with the conflict with somebody else.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about that.
Well, first of all, to fail to deal with the conflict inside yourself is to forfeit the biggest win you're going to get. Because at the end of the day, I can't control you.
Yeah.
I can't control you. What I can't control is myself. So if all I do is prove how wrong you are and I don't get anything that I can personally apply to me, I've missed the best there is to offer. So going introspective, being self-aware without being self-absorbed, getting in your own head, asking yourself some good questions, interrogating yourself, and allowing the Holy Spirit to do it. I mean, think about the scripture where David says, search me, O God, and know me. Try me, know my anxious thoughts. See if there be any wicked way in me. I think it's in the NLT. He says, cross-examine me, Lord, he says. Essentially asking the Holy Spirit to bring revelation to me of what I am not seeing. What is the blind spot in my life that I haven't been able to see up to this point? And I'm in my 40s. I don't know how old you are, 20s?
Yeah, 39.
Yeah, 39. I mean, even at this point, right, there are...
Okay, I'm just feeling convicted by the Holy Spirit.
All right.
I lied.
Okay.
I got to repent right now.
That was conflict. Man versus
God.
I've
got to practice what I'm preaching. I'm 52.
Okay, so. 52. Hey, your goals, dude. 52. If I look half as good as that, 52, I'll be happy. So anyway, All that to say, at 52, you still have blind spots. 41, I have blind spots. So to ask the Holy Spirit to bring that into my focus so I can see, okay, how do you wrestle with yourself? You remember the story of Mary and Martha, right? Mm-hmm. Martha comes in hot because Jesus is over at the house. Mary's sitting at his feet. Martha's doing all the work. It's a beautiful story about priorities. It's a beautiful story about sometimes you got to stop your busyness and your task list and you've got to sit at the feet of Jesus. But there's a lot more going on in that conflict because Martha comes in hot. She really lays her sister open in front of Jesus and frankly, a bunch of people. The Bible says he shows up with at least 12 people, we know, because he's traveling with his disciples. So there's 13 plus Mary,
at least
Lazarus, and probably a bunch more, frankly. It says she prepared a great feast.
Yeah.
So with everybody present and at the feet of Jesus, Martha lays her open. Jesus, isn't it unfair that I'm doing all the work? I'm doing more than my fair share. And my lazy, irresponsible sister sits here and does nothing. And then she barks an order at Jesus. Make her help me.
Man, I'm getting a whole new picture of how that read.
Right?
I'm like, I didn't see it quite that way, but that is true.
Coming in hot, right? In this conflict. And so here's Mary, like, everybody's like, and of course, Jesus, says, hey, I'm not going to take this away from her.
Yeah.
Of course, the conflict could have gone totally different. Martha could say, hey, Mary, psst, psst, Mary. Hey, listen, pull her into a side room. Mary, I am overwhelmed. Peter's eating like a horse. I didn't know he was going to eat that much. They showed up with 7 more people. The dishes are piled up. I ran out of paper products. This is all the good stuff. I need help. Would you help me, please? And we'll get back to Jesus' feet. But could you help me for a moment? Mary would probably be like, sure, of course. But she went in and laid her open, right? What's going on? What Martha has to do is figure out what's going on with Martha. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. If Martha didn't figure out why she's so upset, even if Mary would have helped her, she'd be nitpicking Mary back in the kitchen. Why don't you do it faster? Why aren't you do it? It really has nothing to do with Mary. It has to do with Martha.
Yeah.
Why are you so upset? Of course, we can speculate, Maybe she was upset because Martha is an acts of service person, right? And Mary's quality time. And she sees her giving Jesus quality time. And I'm giving acts of service, but nobody's serving me. I'm the only one loving people around. I'm giving love. No one's giving it back. So maybe she was feeling unloved. Maybe that was under the surface. Or maybe she was in an oppressive culture, frankly, where young girls, when it came time to go off and learn to read and write, had to watch their brothers go, but they didn't get to do that. Women didn't get to sit at the feet of a rabbi.
Yeah.
They were in the women's court in the temple, and they watched the men sit with the rabbi. They watched the men have important conversations. And my hunch about Martha is that she's a pretty type A, driven, ambitious person. You don't come in that hot on the Messiah unless you have some self-confidence. Yeah. So at some point, she watched Lazarus go off to get educated while she remained illiterate. And now the rabbi comes to our house, and my sister has the audacity to plop down at his feet.
Yeah.
Girl, if I'm going to live the handmaid's tale, you are too.
Yeah.
Get up out of the... Okay, but what's really going on, Martha? Something's going on under the surface. So if she doesn't ever wrestle with Martha and find out why I'm so mad and why I'm so bothered, you're going to come in hot every time, and you're going to lay people open in front of people, and it's counterproductive. You're going to push people away.
So good. So let me just, one of the things somebody taught or spoke into me years ago, choose your battles wisely. How can we know when to go in to this conflict and to what level and when to pull back? In other words, when is the conflict worth having?
Great question.
And when is it worth just letting go?
Yep.
And because there's been times that I have died on some hills that I should not have chosen that battle, and I died up there, or a part of me or my integrity or something was lost because I chose the wrong conflict or at the wrong time or in the wrong way.
Yep.
So how do we know when to just let it go or when to have it?
Great question. So I have a few thoughts on it. First one is, whether to have the conflict at all, I think you need to ask yourself, what role do I play in this person's life and what role do they play in mine? So for example, there are some people that may criticize you, right? We talked a little bit about the video before, and there's lots of people getting on saying terrible things about me. Okay. I didn't respond to any of them.
Sure.
Because what role do they play in my life? What role do I play in theirs?
That's good.
They're not, it's not my sister. It's not my brother. We're not on staff. They don't know me. I don't know them. And that's okay. So, I mean, there's 7 billion people in the world. You can't be friends with all of them. Yeah. Being a friend isn't scalable.
Yeah.
Being a teacher is scalable. You could put one piece of content, everybody watch it twice. 14 billion views.
Yeah.
You could lead, right? The Antichrist is going to try to lead the world.
Yeah.
One person, that's scalable. Friendship is not scalable. Family is not scalable. Pastoral care is not scalable to an individual.
Yes.
So when you look at the conflict, you have to look at what is my role in their life? What is their role in my life? And some of them, you just let them go and give them grace and you go, they don't know me. And you do kind of what I did, I would say with that video, which is to step back for a minute and go, no, I get it. I get where they're coming from. Get a mile in their shoes for a minute, but then to go, I'm just going to let that go. I think when you look then at the different roles, right? You got family, you got friends, you have an inner circle, however you want to say it. I've got confidants. I've got people that are really close. Like these are life friend people that I think if this is somebody that I go, I want to foster this relationship for the rest of my life. There's a till death do us part type of thing, or a lot closer. There's more relationship there. Then I think you have to enter that conflict. As messy as it might be, some conflicts you got to pick and you got to walk in and be willing to fight your way through. You cannot neglect that. Because I'm going to say this, not that everything my wife does, I have to bring it up. There are some things I go, you know what? I'm being petty here. I'm just going to let that go. But I do think we live in a lot of self-deception around what we actually let go. Just because you didn't bring it up didn't mean you let it go.
True.
And sometimes we stay quiet about it, but we keep a little bit of score. And it's still brewing under the surface. And so I got to be back to the self-awareness. I got to be honest with myself enough to go, did I really let it go or did I just not bring it up? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those aren't the same thing. So what's the process for letting it go? Well, giving grace, resolving it in my own mind and heart to where I'm not carrying it still. And if I'm not able to do that, then I do think it needs to be talked about, brought up in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I think looking at what is that role, if I'm a business person and we're in business together, if we're in some kind of transactional relationship, that might affect the conflicts I'm willing to have versus somebody who I'm like, man, this is more familial.
That is so good, Greg. And I really, those that are listening right now that are in a tough conflict, sometimes too, I think that we need to invite someone else into the equation. Now, that's not your mom,
your mother-in-law,
or your mother-in-law, or somebody that they got my back and they're on my side. But I'm talking about somebody that you bring into the equation that is a godly, that who can actually be able to balance both sides and to be able to help.
A detective, right?
Yeah.
Versus a judge who's going to go, you're right, you're wrong. A detective to go, let's find clues together, let's dig for him.
Yeah, and somebody who will help and walk them through that is very important. But you also have to be willing to walk into it and listening, not just like, hey, it's my way or the highway.
Right.
Now, what about dealing with those strong personalities? Maybe it's somebody who they have trouble letting go and they're just kind of just like pushing through until they get their way, or, there's a lot of different types of strong personalities. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And sometimes the personality that is listening to me, maybe them that's the strong personality.
Yeah.
And they need to learn how to deal with this.
Yeah, that's really good. So a couple things. Let me start before I deal directly with the strong personalities to say that it's really hard to have a healthy conflict with an unhealthy person.
Oh,
that's very hard.
Preach that.
No matter who they are, like we have our unhealthy mechanisms that trigger in a conflict. So you could go in and handle everything beautifully. Yeah. You go in and own your side of it. You could frame the question perfectly, come in gently. But if you're in an unhealthy person, I've just never ceased to be amazed at how an unhealthy person can twist and turn and all that stuff. So assuming that the strong personality is a healthy person, okay? If they're an unhealthy person, a strong personality it's a handful. And that's why some go, you know what? Pick my battles. I don't think I'm going to go in. If they're a healthy person, even if they're an intimidating person, big, strong, smart, force of nature type person, they can handle healthy conflict. In fact, a lot of times people are afraid to engage that personality because they think it's going to come back. I've been really impressed over the years, times that I've brought a direct, honest conflict to a strong personality, to watch them, where I thought they may lash out, actually go very humble and receptive. Actually, you find a lot of these like Enneagram 8 personalities, a lot of the high D on the disc. Okay, a lot of these different personalities that are, they're again a force of nature type person. A lot of times they highly respect and value directness.
Yeah.
And people get thrown off because a lot of times they are the direct person, so they dish it out. But people question, can dish it out? Can you take it?
Yeah.
Unhealthy can dish it out but can't take it.
Yeah.
A healthy dishes it out, but when it comes back, they actually thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that was helpful. And so you can be a little gun shy because you go, man, it feels a little scary to kind of bring this verbal thing right to his chin or her chin. And yet with the right person, they sit back, they think about it.
So good.
And it opens it up. So even sometimes you go, well, I don't know. What if I don't know if they're healthy or not? You know what? The only way you can know if somebody's trustworthy is to trust them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you trust them by going, I'm going to initiate this conflict. Now, if you go in and you do it the right way and you prepare your heart and you're a detective and not an attorney and you're doing this, you frame it the right way and you honor and you own your end of it and you do all that, and they come unhinged, they just kind of told you who they are. And at a certain point there, you may now question and ask yourself, hey, do I want to be in business with this person?
Yeah.
Do we need to reframe this do we need to reframe this relationship? But that strong personality, directness, honesty. A strong personality hates it when they think you're trying to Jedi mind trick them. When you're being overly diplomatic. And they're like, bro, just tell me what you think.
Straightforward.
Tell me what, I hurt your feelings. I stepped on your toe. Tell me what I did. Tell me what I said. And if you come in with that, you actually show them honor.
It's good. Speaking of conflict, you and I have a little conflict we need to deal with right now.
All right.
That Chicago Bulls hat that you're wearing right now, you are in Oklahoma City Thunder territory. So somebody out there is going to have to provide you,
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
A good hat or piece of clothing.
This isn't really a Bulls hat. Okay. This is a 90s hat. All right. I'm representing the 90s, which are making a little resurgence right now. So this is much less about I literally couldn't name you one player on the Chicago Bulls right now. I'm not.
So that's the whole point. Why are you even thinking about wearing something?
I'm flying the flag of the 90s.
That's good.
Yeah.
So let me kind of let's bring this thing toward an end here, and let's talk a little bit about you personally.
Okay.
Okay. You've been telling us a little bit about how to navigate, but I'm sure that there's moments where you have mishandled conflict or you have, and so you learn from that so that you can be able to speak to this topic.
Absolutely.
So talk to us a little bit about a story, situation, maybe something that you mishandled, you learned from, so that you can actually speak to the topic today.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I've mishandled many conflicts, and I think a lot of stories come to mind, but before I even tell the story, some of the things I've learned about this is part of my wiring as a thinker is I'm an external processor, right? So on our staff and our team, there are times I'll start processing an idea and do a 180.
Yeah.
I've actually done a 360.
I did that too.
Yeah, I've done a 360. I started like, hey, guys, I think we ought to do this. And then I'm like, and 5 minutes later, I'm like, no, that'd be a terrible idea. And then 7 minutes later, I'm like, no, we're definitely going to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like sometimes for me to actually, for my brain to engage in, for me to take the complexity of an issue and bring simplicity and order, I've got to process it verbally. And I think you got to be careful knowing time and score in a conflict when it's appropriate to externally process with the person you're with, right? So if my wife and I are having a conflict and I'm trying to externally process something, I might say something processing that a few minutes later I don't agree with, or it just came out because I'm working it out, and yet she heard it, and it did. You know what I'm saying? So like knowing that and going, I got to be careful there. The other thing is being careful on letting off steam, right? So I'm love languages, words of affirmation, quality time, gifts. I'm a words of affirmation and physical touch love language person, which means if I love you and I feel passionate about you, I say nice words to you. I say very genuine compliments. But if I'm mad at you, I either want to withhold my words and not say a word to you, or I want to lash out verbally. So understanding that for me to pressure release with my mouth might feel a little good in the moment, but really, really hurts people I care about. So I've had to learn that the hard way. I had actually recently, I was in like a leadership cohort. I had made a year commitment to this cohort. My wife and I were both in it with these other pastoral couples around the country. And I'm in this thing, and there was this one guy who was kind of rubbing me the wrong way. And I had one of those thoughts like, maybe if we hang out more, it'll get better. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know what this is. Okay. I've been there.
Okay. So I stuck it out, but it was getting worse. It was getting worse over time. But I was kind of masking it, but I was in this season where I was really tired. Yeah. It was actually right after Easter of this year. We did so many services. I don't even remember how many times I preached. And it was like on Monday, we had this cohort Zoom call. So the last thing, frankly, I wanted to do right after Easter preaching was do a Zoom call, but we did. And so I'm on there, and this one day I'm tired, I'm agitated. He's agitating me. He's saying a bunch of stuff on this call that wasn't bad. But it was under my skin. And part of the cohort was, they said, hey, respond to what he said. Let's talk about what he said, right? And the whole time I'm thinking, I've just dismantled everything he said in my mind, and I've got all these things in it. But I'm thinking, have some couth, have some etiquette, don't say anything, right? So the whole time in my mind, like, don't talk. But I'm kind of like, I want to let the steam off. And in my mind, I'm thinking, don't call on me. Well, they call on me. Greg, what do you think? And I shouldn't have even unmuted, Rodney. I shouldn't have unmuted. I should have just given a thumbs up, or, pretended my internet went bad and just fell off the call. But I unmuted and I unloaded. And I just dissected this dude. And I felt totally justified in the moment, because I'm like, if we're going to be on this thing, we got to be able to tell the truth. What's wrong with this generation? Nobody wants to hear the truth. I mean, that was kind of what was going on. Everything I said, I think, was accurate. I actually think the things I said was correct. It was just savage. It was like anesthesia, or surgery with no anesthesia. It was like getting your appendix removed on the prairie with like Lewis and Clark. Bite down on this rock. Here comes a knife. Okay. That's what it was. And so, but in the moment I felt totally justified.
Yeah.
I get off the call. My wife calls me immediately. As soon as the call was done, she's like,
oh my.
She's like, you came in hot, dude. What's wrong? Are you all right? And I was like, we're either going to tell the truth or we're going to tell lies. What are we going to?
You're defending yourself.
Totally. Yeah. And then I went to defending my points.
Yeah.
Which really didn't matter.
No.
Right? Martha, her point was right. Yeah, Mary, somebody should help this woman out. She shouldn't have to do it by herself. But the validity of your point is not an excuse for you to miss the bigger picture of what's going on. And that's what I did. And I got fixated on my point and my points and how right they were, instead of what I had actually done to a guy. So I stepped back. I talked to my wife. I processed. I prayed. I called my counselor. I talked through some stuff with the counselor. I'm like, man, I did this. And it was really powerful, because he said, all right, Greg, you're in like that emotional, like you're emotionally, physically, spiritually getting to where like at a quarter tank.
Yeah.
You're headed towards E, right? So he's like, how do you know that you're there? What's the first indication? He helped me track down, actually, that my first indication that I'm getting to where I might mishandle a conflict or getting in a bad space emotionally is the desire to be mean. Even if I hadn't been mean.
Yeah.
Before I've ever been mean.
Yeah.
I want to be mean.
Yeah.
And fortunately at 41, I've enough self-control and enough maturity that most of the time I can cope with it and I figure out how to leave the room in time, or, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But like the fact that I even want to be mean, I started to really process that. I thought, actually when I want to be mean, because I'm a pastor, I'm a shepherd, I can't be mean. I got to be nice. You know what I'm saying? I got to be nice.
Yes.
So I started living vicariously through mean people. Like mean comedians. I'm like, get them, dude. That's hilarious. And I listen because they get to be mean. I can't be mean.
Yeah.
I got to enjoy their meanness. Or, I watch a movie with a mean person. I'm like, yeah, it's my spirit animal. Yeah. But I can't do that. That's an indication because, Rodney, when I'm healthy, I don't want to be mean, dude. Mean comedians get on my nerves. I'm like, come on, you're better than that. You can be funny without being a jerk.
So good.
I want to help people, man. I want to protect people, man. I want to serve people. I want to sacrifice. I want to be long-suffering and patient. When I'm healthy, when I'm not, I want to be mean. And so that was a game-changing, detective. That was a clue that my detective friend helped me see, that I went, when I'm starting to feel like I want to be mean, I need to make a change. I need to take a break. I need to get a breath. I need to get a rest. I need to get a Sabbath. I need to do something. I need to rejuvenate it. Otherwise, I'm going to get to that point, it's going to spill out and I'm going to hurt somebody. You know what's kind of cool about that story, as embarrassing as it is for me? Once I step back, I realized I need to apologize to the guy. So I called him up. And I said, hey, man, you're a good man. And you didn't deserve that, especially not in that forum. His wife was on the call. Other people, their wives were on the call. I said, I owe you an apology. I owe your wife an apology. If you'd like me to call her, I'll call her. But I don't usually just dial up people's wives. But if you'd like me to call your wife, I'll apologize to her. But you deserve better than that. And, sir, that had much less to do with you than it did with me. Virtually nothing to do with you. It had everything to do with me. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I'm in a bad spot. Emotionally, I need a break. And I owe you an apology. You deserve better than that. And Rodney, I saw a measure of grace pour out of this dude. Beautiful. He said, I've been there, man. He said, it's okay. You don't owe me an apology. He goes, I've walked a mile in those shoes. And we had a beautiful moment. And what was cool is a guy who had been under my skin previous, I saw a whole different side of him in the conflict. A whole different side.
Yeah.
That's why I said at the beginning, it is the secret sauce, man. If we can get good at this, we can turn enemies into friends. We can find common ground. We can solve problems. We can unearth clues that make not just our life better, the people around us better. And so, I mean, that was probably one of the more recent ones I feel like I really mishandled. But even with the mishandling, good can still come out of it.
So good. Thank you for sharing that story with us, because I learned something. I'm sure that everyone listening learned something, is encouraged. Somebody had mentioned to me a while ago in regards to conflict. Is my conflict, is it Christ-centered or is it me-centered? Is it to bring glory to Christ, resolution, healing, hope, or is it all about me getting my way, my wishes, my wants? And so, wow, thank you.
You got it, man.
Thank you for this time. Thank you for this weekend. I am glad that we got to sit down together. And I'm so glad that you joined us. And so it's been a thrill. I hope that you shared this with somebody else. I hope that you listen to it again and again and again. And also go back and listen to his message that he preached this past weekend on Thursday night. And so I am so glad that you are joining us today. Again, take a moment to let us know what you're thinking. Actually, rate us. Give us a 5, all right? Give us some good comments and feedback. And so I'm so glad that you're joining us today. We'll see you next week on Up and to the Right.